On this episode of Quiet the Clock, I'm going to share my egg freezing journey and my journey to motherhood. At 37, I finally decided to freeze my eggs, and it was a decision that I had gone back and forth on for quite some time. Really a lot of, again, uncertainty. Is this even worth it? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of hardship on my body. So I was really in the contemplation state for years. So finally at 37, I decided to go for a consultation, and I went to Extend Fertility in Manhattan. And even looking back, trying to put all the pieces together of this journey, I don't even really recall how I landed on Extend Fertility. I don't know if I saw some promotional pamphlet or something. I really don't remember that piece, how I got there. What I'll say is I didn't know how many options were out there, and I think there are a lot more options out there now, but Extend Fertility is where I went. And when I went for my consultation, it was sort of this blur because you're getting all this information thrown at you. I was already in this sort of anxious, unsettled state because I was doing this. I had a lot of emotions around being there, having to be there, feeling like I had to be there because of my age and because of the uncertainty and because of the misalignment in my relationship. So I remember sitting at the consultation and, the nurse is going through all these charts, all these numbers. Again, all this stuff is being thrown at you. And I remember looking at the chart at my age, and I don't even know if I'm remembering this accurately, but it felt like this dramatic drop in possibility for children or egg quality. And I left that appointment distraught, completely distraught. And I remember calling my best friend, who's going to be joining us on this podcast, just devastated and crying and angry and frustrated. And I remember saying to her, I was like, there's no point in doing this. Like, why would I do this? This makes no sense. It's so much money that, there's no chance of getting a child from this. So I was really, really disappointed after that consultation, as she's done many times and still does. She really talked me off my ledge and sort of helped ground me in why I even went to the consultation in the first place, why it was something I was contemplating, and sort of reassured me that this would give me the insurance that I wanted and emotionally would help, make me feel more reassured that I would have eggs. But that's the thing, you don't even know how many eggs you're going to get. And that like making this decision with so much uncertainty is really, really hard because it is a huge investment. I also remember leaving that consultation feeling like so regretful that I hadn't done it sooner, so upset with myself that I stayed in 2 years of indecision and going back and forth on on making the decision. And I do remember thinking, this is kind of unnatural. If this is meant to be for me, if motherhood is meant to be for me, it'll just be, and sort of leave it up to the universe or whoever. So I really went back and forth on that for a while, but ultimately decided to freeze my eggs at 37. Did not feel empowered by any means. I felt angry. I felt resentful. And the reason why I felt like at the time, the reason why at 37 I was freezing was because my partner was not ready to have children. He was uncertain about children. And I was really honestly angry with him. And, looking back, I don't know how completely fair that was. I think it was someone to place all my anger and frustration on. So I froze, and I, at the time, was in therapy, which was very, very helpful. And this particular therapist encouraged me to include Rob in the process, include him in the shots, just let him in on the process. And I was really resistant to that because I was angry with him, because I was kind of like, F that, I'm doing this on my own. You don't want to do this. I should back up, because one of the suggestions was that Rob and I do embryos, because I was very sure about Rob. I was very sure about our relationship. The partnership was never in question. It was like, where was the partnership going that was in question? And I felt really confident about making a choice to do embryos. He wasn't there yet. And so that was a piece that was really hurtful and upsetting for me. And I think built on top of that resentment and the narrative of, I have to do this. Fast forward, the therapist encouraged me to include him. And I was at first super resistant to that, because I just felt like F you, I'm kind of on my own here. I'm doing this because you're not ready. I don't want you to be any part of this. I feel grateful that I listened to her advice because I did include him in the process, and he was incredible through it. He really took the lead on doing everything. The only thing I had to do was stand there and take the injection. He mixed all the medications. He made sure I had the right dosage. He was really incredible through the whole process. So I'm glad that I took her advice and I listened. But even in having him involved, there was still, a range of emotions every single day when I was going through that process. And even logistically, it's hard because you have to be at the doctor constantly, like every day, every other day, or every day as you get closer to your trigger shot. And I was running my practice in Midtown Manhattan. So I'm trying to run uptown to be at my appointments, completely reschedule clients, shuffle them around. And that's another layer of uncertainty, is like you really don't know when you have to go, what time you have to go. It's really a crapshoot. So, you go in the morning, they check everything out, you get a call later in the afternoon, they tell you your dosage for that night, and then they tell you when you have to go back. So as a therapist with standing appointments and people that count on consistency and count on their time slots, and for me to show up for them, that was another additional layer and struggle for me, was just managing life while also trying to do this. So that was really hard. Funny story, the first night that I was starting my shots, Extend Fertility had a courier program where they would send you the meds. So I had all the medications sent to my office in Midtown, and I didn't ask enough questions when I was going through this process. I didn't know what the medications were. I had no idea that one medication you have to refrigerate. So when I'm leaving my office for the day, and at that time, I didn't live in the city. I lived in Rockland County, which an hour away. I get home, and without realizing it, I don't have all the medications. So the medications that didn't need to be refrigerated were, behind the receptionist. They hand me that, and I walk out and go home for the night. The other set of medication that I needed was in the refrigerator at my office. So I get home, realize we don't have everything that we need. This is the first night of my shots, and I completely melt down, like big time meltdown, crying, probably screaming, just so distraught. Again, another place to dump all these emotions, all these fears, sadness, anger, in this mistake, in this completely innocent mistake. And I call my friend, again, same friend, and again, talks me off the ledge. And we call the doctor, and all works out. There was a way to, there was a workaround for the medication. But it was really this moment where all the emotion just came pouring out, because I was not in a good place. I was angry that I had to do this. I was scared. I do not like needles. That speaks more to my stubbornness, because I was willing to do it myself when I legit hate needles. If I could have someone hold my hand at 42 doing blood work, I would have that. That was a memorable moment in this particular journey. And then another moment throughout the egg freezing process was, I have a very good friend of mine who is a country singer in Nashville. Her name is Carrie Welling. She's amazing. Check her out. Just a little plug there. And I'm actually going to see her next weekend. She was in the city for a show, and I, every time she's in town, I do my best to be there. But I was in the middle of this process, and part of the process is doing the shots at the same time every night, or within like a very short window at the same night. So the window fell, right in the beginning of her show, or like right before the beginning of her show. And so Rob and I drive down to the city. We're in the back seat. For some reason, we had to rent a car. I don't know why. I forget why we had to rent a car. So we're in the back seat, and Rob is literally shooting me up with the needles. And we're both laughing, but I'm laughing less, or maybe I'm just laughing to mask what I'm really feeling. And he's like, "Oh God, look, only us. If anybody walked by right now and saw me shooting up with needles, like, what would they think?" I was like, "Ah, ha, ha, ha." But I was pissed. And in that moment, I said, yeah, that would be cool, and that would be funny, and that would be a great story if we were trying for a baby. But this is not what's happening. I'm freezing my eggs because you're not ready for a baby. So we had completely different experiences with that moment. And yeah, if it had been different, if we were trying for a baby, I would have been all on board how funny that moment was. I go through the process. I got 14 eggs. And it's hard to know what that number meant. I think I felt happy about that number, but then all the questions start to creep in. Is that a good number? Could I have gotten more eggs? Did, someone else gets more eggs than you? And, so still a lot of doubt. I did have a sense of relief because now I was like, okay, I have money in the bank. I have my insurance. I have these eggs. I still don't know what's happening in my relationship. I still don't know if I'll ever use these eggs. But I felt really good I made the decision. I went through it. It's done. The eggs are there. In that moment and for a period of time, it gave me relief and a little bit of pause from hard conversations and fighting and questions. So that was a nice little reprieve. But there were still concerns. There was still uncertainty. The cost was a huge expense, and that was an expense I took on completely by myself as well. And it's not cheap to do this. And I think it was part of the reason that there was hesitation on doing it. I wasn't at 37 in a place to just drop thousands and thousands of dollars on egg freezing. And when I was at the consultation, you meet with a financial advisor, and one thing they walk you through is the options. And at that time, and I know it's since evolved, fortunately, there are a lot more benefits and options. But at this time, the two options that were presented to me was a medical loan or a no interest credit card. And the way they presented the no interest credit card was interesting because they're like, just do it, you'll get all the points. And I'm like, this is not even what I care about right now. It's that I have to take out a credit card to afford this, was just really jarring. So while I had this reprieve and I had this insurance, that I had the 14 eggs, all these things were still going through my mind, the cost. In kind of going back, I found another note that speaks to, it creates this interesting duality of my life, this idea of like, I have everything, but I don't have this. And on this note is a text, and I'll read that to you, that I sent to Rob when I made the decision to freeze the eggs. But also on that note are specs for an office. And at the time I was opening up a second office for my therapy practice, and really so focused on the egg piece, kind of overlooking how incredible of an accomplishment it was to be opening the second office. And that caught me to see this note because I knew in the moment I was really just focused on all the things I didn't have. And it was interesting to see both those things on the same note. But I wanted to share the note the text that I wrote to Rob, because it also speaks to a lot of what I was feeling when I was going through this and making the decision. So I just want to read that quickly now. It reads, "Hope you had a good day. I love you very much. I've decided to do this procedure. It will take pressure off things. I will be honest, I'm not thrilled about it. I'm sad about it, but it is the only choice, best option at this point. I guess I just figured at this point, and considering what a great relationship we have and how much we love and respect each other, we would be at a different point and having different conversations, but I have to accept that we are not. I will try and be as open about this procedure as possible, but again, I will be honest, I don't feel very open about it right now." So I was sad. I was disappointed. I felt like it was my only choice. It was my only option. Again, I'm glad I involved him, but I was really resistant to doing that. And it did take pressure off. I think that what I said in that text was true. It did take pressure off things. It did put a pause on these really hard conversations, but briefly, but really, really briefly, because my age started to terrify me. So at this point now, fast forward, I'm 39 years old. In my work and in my personal life, I am privy to a lot of infertility journeys, unfortunate infertility journeys. And hearing those would also terrify me, because here I am 39. Yes, I have these 14 eggs, but I also don't have 5 years of trying ahead of me. And unfortunately, that was one woman's story. Her and her partner had been trying for 5 years. So I'm inundated with all this information about everybody's struggle, and it's way more common than I think a lot of people realize. And so I'm hearing all this, and it's just allowing my fear to grow and grow and grow. The hard conversation started again, and in July of 2019, Rob and I went to a fertility doctor together. And my mistake, it was the same fertility doctor that I had gone to, and did not listen to me, did not hear me out, did not hear that my partner and I were not aligned, and was telling me to have a baby now, which was not the option or possibility. So we went to that doctor, and I knew right away, I could read Rob's body language. Like, he was not having it. He did not like this guy. It was a really awful consultation. And I remember going leaving Rob in the doctor's office and then going to the exam room with the doctor. And he essentially told me that he's so sorry, as if I just had a loss. And he's telling me you really should, think about the relationship. And now looking back, I realize how inappropriate that was. But I was literally in there just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing and just really, really, really upset. And just very, very quickly, I want to mention when Rob and I got pregnant, I really wanted to email that doctor and be like, F you, we're good, we're pregnant, whatever. So we leave that appointment. We had a really, really horrible fight, and we both decided we needed to pause on fighting. We needed 1 month with no fighting, with no hard conversations, because what that also caused was a huge disconnect in our relationship. And we lost sight of who we were as a couple. We lost sight of our strengths as a couple. And I will completely own that was very much driven by me, by my uncertainty, my fears. And so we decided, we're going to take everything's off the table for August. We're not going to talk about it. We want to just try to reconnect, to enjoy each other. And we did that. But what I said before we took a pause, is that we have to come back in September with a plan. That if we're not aligned, if we are two mature adults that want different things, then we might have to make a hard choice. And I said, I'm willing to pause, but we have to come back together in September with a plan. So August comes and goes. We have a great time. We reconnect. We have fun. And September comes and we sit down for this hard conversation. I said, look, I was on birth control at the time. I said, look, I'm getting off the pill because either we're doing this or we're not. And either way, I don't need to be on the pill. And he said to me, he's like, okay, get off. Let's see what happens. And that was probably the second or third week in September. October, I go out to California to surprise my best friend for her 40th birthday. And we had a very, very good time. Lots of cocktails flowing. And towards the end of the trip, she's like, you're pregnant. I know that you're pregnant. I'm like, no. I literally had gotten off the pill. I got like ovulation strips, like pregnancy tests. I was ready to go. I was just waiting to get my period, waiting. I get home from California. Two interesting things about the trip in California is I was running on the beach, and I love California. I love the beach. And I had this like little bump, and I was like, is there, maybe. And then flying home, I felt so anxious, and I'm not an anxious flyer. I actually love to fly. And that felt weird to me too. I was like, what's going on? So I get home, land on a Monday, on a Tuesday, take a pregnancy test on October 13th, and I was pregnant. And I was in shock. And again, a range of emotions, total mix of emotions, because this has been years of sadness, uncertainty, disappointment, egg freezing. And here it was. I was pregnant, and I really didn't know how to feel about it. I was excited, of course. I also was, I knew it wouldn't be an easy conversation with Rob, because one of the things I would be very clear about in our conversations was this could take years. We have to start now. It could take years. And now I come back to him weeks later and say that I'm pregnant. So we were both in shock. We were both very, very much in shock. But what I feel so grateful for is the way that it happened, because I don't think where I was emotionally that I could manage month after month getting my period and not being pregnant. I was really at a breaking point emotionally, that I had no more capacity left to bear any more heartbreak. So I feel really, really grateful for that. And I think it can be hard because you see these fairy tale moments, or you see these things on social media where it's the pregnancy announcement, and it's like happy and joyful and so great. And like, I didn't get that moment. It was not a completely happy moment. It was a moment of shock, confusion, overwhelmed. I mean, we're incredibly blessed and happy and love our son to death, but that moment was not kind of what you see on Instagram or in movies for us. So, I've been very open and vulnerable about my journey, and I hope that helps and inspires and reassures and gives hope. Where I'll share this as well, because I'm committed to being vulnerable. The uncertainty has not gone away. The uncertainty continues. We are currently in discussions for baby number 2, and we, unsurprisingly, are not aligned. So a lot of these old emotions are coming up for me. But what realize now is I have a better way to navigate it. I have a better framework on it. I have a better mentality on it. So while the uncertainty still exists, it's not breaking me down the way it did in my 30s. So that is my hope for this podcast. I also, I'm going to be having incredible guests on, and I stay sensitive and mindful to the fact that some of these guests are still in that place of uncertainty where I was without a partner, either have frozen or considering freezing. And so I want, and I'm very mindful of staying sensitive to how I talk to them and how I hear their stories or share their stories as someone being on the other side. Because I know for me, hearing people say, stay positive, it'll happen for you, when they had those things was not helpful for me. So I remain really sensitive to that. And I think my journey has allowed me to understand that and have that lens. I also want to say, and I'll share more in upcoming episodes, I had an amazing, incredible support system. My sister is my rock. She is my ride or die for life, and she'll do and has done everything for me. She's always been a support. This wasn't her journey. She had children in her very early 30s. So there's a lot, that she just couldn't relate to, and no fault of her own. But our paths have been very, very different. My friend who got all the phone calls while I was going through the egg freezing will be here, and be here as well. And she did share my journey, and you'll get to hear her journey as well. And so having her by my side through this was incredibly helpful and necessary. And the last person I want to talk about is sort of this I didn't realize that this would be such a huge place of support, but I had a friend that I went to high school with, Nancy Caparelli. I want to shout her out. She was a huge source of reassurance and cheerleading. And, she's 4 years older than me, but she had shared her journey on Facebook, and I reached out, and she was always there to answer and talk to me and talk me through it and just encourage me. And it was so important to me that she was one of the first people I called and told I was pregnant. So I want this to be a place of support. And if you don't have a support system, or you do, lean into it. It's what helped me get through this decade of my life. So, and I hope this can be a place of support too. So this sort of wraps up my journey. As I have conversations with other guests, I'll be sharing more of my stories and contributing to those conversations. But thank you for being here, and stay tuned for upcoming episodes with other incredible women who will be sharing their stories. And if you're interested to hear more, subscribe to our channel.